Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Locked On Dynasty podcast. I am Kate Magdziuk. You could follow me on Twitter at FFBallBlast. As always, I am joined by my co-host, Marcus Mosher. You could follow him on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you guys had a very successful weekend because the fantasy playoffs are next week.
What a weird week of football, though. Like, we had a lot of games that weren't competitive at all for the first three quarters, and then all of a sudden they got
say that every week.
Yeah, I know. It's just a weird week. We got some big performances we need to talk about, Kate. We got some ones that certainly underwhelmed a little bit. Where would you like to start? The show is yours.
Let's start positive.
Let's start positive.
It's Monday. We all need a little pick-me-up. Let's celebrate some of the names of the guys that won us our weeks. And, of course, you cannot talk about guys that won you your weeks without discussing Rashad Penny. Tip of the iceberg. He was the RB2 this week in half PPR scoring. Just kept breaking off runs. 16 rush attempts, 137 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Interestingly, his brother Elijah Penny also scored a touchdown yesterday, which doesn't happen often. So the Penny family is on a run today. Congratulations to the Penny family. But he looked fantastic. And he won me a couple of weeks where I had him in mostly redraft. But this was a guy I saw him on waivers in a Dynasty league not long ago. Wow.
So what's the long-term value here? Do we even think he has anything, or is this just a game in which the Seahawks kind of beat up on a bad Texans team?
I think this was an opportune matchup, but Chris Carson done for the season. I think Rashad Penny far and away looked much, much better than Alex Collins has. Like, I think that immediate spot for touches, which we know the Seahawks love to run, I mean, that has to belong to Rashad Penny at this point, correct?
Maybe.
Wow. I'm actually shocked that you're... Who do you think is worthy of taking touches from him?
He had 16 carries for 137 yards. Okay, do you realize this is just the third game in his career in which he had more than 75 rushing yards? It's just like this is a fourth-year running back who got to beat up against one of the worst teams in the league. He's had a bunch of injuries before. He turns 26 this offseason.
But rest of season, do you think he is the guy that the Seahawks are going to roll with moving forward for, to get the bulk share of the touches?
Probably. I don't know though, because they gave Adrian Peterson 11 touches last week and he was the lead running back. I don't trust anything about the Seattle offense right now.
The difference is Rashad Penny was productive.
I get it. You're probably right. It's just, listen, I just have been scarred by Rashad Penny before. I'm not going to get myself emotionally invested again.
Well, let me just give you guys a little stat. So in the 4 games, he's had more than 10 rushing attempts in 4 of his career games so far. Not great for a fourth-year running back, but in each of those, or in 3 out of those 4 games, he had over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown.
Listen, you're not going to convince me to be a Rashad Penny stan. I'm just telling you. But listen, it happens a couple more games. Maybe we can have a conversation. I just think this is still a little bit fluky. Can we please move on to somebody else?
Fine. But I do think
Alvin Kamara. How about Alvin Kamara?
Yes.
But
back. That's so boring. It's an expected play. Alvin Kamara, he got all of the touches yesterday. Thank goodness. We saw a little bit of Tony Jones Jr., but it was the Alvin Kamara show. And you know what I think is a really great sign? Taysom Hill was the quarterback, and we still saw Alvin Kamara be productive. Saw 5 targets yesterday. 25 receiving yards, 120 on the ground. You gotta love that. And I feel I feel like I breathed a sigh of relief.
Breathed a sigh of relief.
I breathed it.
Yeah, he's right back to being a high-end RB1, right? And we knew he would be. He's just a superstar, and he's a great talent. 27 carries in this game, Kate. That's absolutely incredible. Because remember early on in Kamara's career, we were always worried about, well, is he going to get enough touches? He got enough, 31 touches in this game. I think the Saints are just going to use him up the rest of the season. And if you're going into the playoffs next year and you made it somehow, despite Alvin Kamara missing a lot of time, the Saints are like right in the thick of things in the NFC. So like they're not going to rest him. Like they're going to use him up. I have a hard time believing that you're going to take many running backs the rest of the season over Alvin Kamara. Jonathan Taylor, of course. After that, not many.
I mean, if you had, bought low on Alvin Kamara this little tenuous period where he's had this knee injury, I feel like there were a lot of question marks because it felt like it came out of left field entirely. We weren't totally sure what to make of it. We didn't get a ton of news necessarily. One more guy I want to shout out again, Hunter Renfro, dude. What is this guy doing? He is on an absolute tear. He looks fantastic as a route runner. What do we make of this? I want to hear your Raiders analysis.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting one. 3 straight games of over 100 yards. You just, prorate that out for a 17-game schedule. That's 2,000 receiving yards. Yeah, he's not going to.
He's like Justin Jefferson.
This is really a case in which Darren Waller's out.
For any listeners that are questioning that.
Darren Waller's out. Henry Ruggs has obviously been released. The Raiders have been getting kind of blown out the last couple of weeks, and he's just getting a million targets. And yeah, he's converting on them, and he's been pretty efficient. I don't think this type of production is here to stay, but somebody who averages, 70 receiving yards a game like he's kind of done all season seems pretty likely. So in a PPR league, 12, 13 points a week, yeah, I think that's at the very least a wide receiver 3 that you're playing every single week.
I love it. Yeah. Do you think are we going to see even 75% of the current production that he's been on display with once Darren Waller returns to the lineup?
Yeah, I think you can. They just don't have anybody else to throw to. Even when Waller comes back, it's Waller and Renfro, and that's basically the entire offense. So I don't see why not. And here's the thing, though, Kate. We have no idea when Darren Waller's coming back. They said it's a week-to-week injury with his knee. The Raiders play on a short week. They play on Saturday this week on the road in Cleveland. Would not be surprised if he doesn't play in that game as well. So why not? We could see another 100-yard day from Renfro here in Week 15. So I want to talk about some tight ends, Kate. But before we do that, we should tell you guys about DirecTV. DirecTV Stream brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, shows, and all in one place. And the best part, there is no annual contract. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That is directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. I want to say I love DirecTV. I have been a DirecTV supporter for many, many years. It's just the absolute best way to watch football on Sundays. Please go out and get DirecTV if you don't already have it. All right, okay, let's talk about the tight end. So we should start with George Kittle, right, who just had a monster day. 13 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he was the best player of the field by far in that 49er Bengal game. And since
he single-handedly won that game.
Absolutely, without a doubt. They don't even come close to winning that game. Last 2 weeks, 151 yards and a touchdown, 181 yards and 2 touchdowns against Seattle. It's clear that he's healthy. It's clear that they're going to feature him. Where do we kind of have him ranked inside the top Dynasty tight ends right now?
He's competing. I mean, so right now, I think we're in this very interesting period of influx here because all this season we have seen Kyle Pitts, and especially in the beginning of the season when he was red hot, we saw and believed in the wide receiver 1 hype, or tight end 1 hype.
And he's been fine. He's been fine.
You've got to start looking at George Kittle because he's
Yeah.
put up 2 straight games of 100 receiving yards or more, and he's essentially functioning as the team's wide receiver 1. Like,
yeah,
it's very hard to argue with that, and it's very hard to argue with a guy that's that capable after the catch. I think you have to seriously consider him a potential candidate for tight end 1.
I agree. And let's say he is tight end 1. I'm still putting Kyle Pitts at tight end 2 at worst because even on Sunday, he didn't have a huge game, but 5 for 61 on 6 targets. You'll take that, right? Like that's an 11-point PPR day. It's fine. It's not going to lose you a week. And then there's Mark Andrews, who had another big game with Tyler Huntley as quarterback, 11 receptions for 115 yards and a touchdown. He's on pace for like 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. A really strong season. But what I really want to talk about is Travis Kelsey. Like, what do you do with Travis Kelsey? Because he's 32 years old, right? And it's pretty clear that he's declining at least a little bit. Over the last 3 weeks, Kate, he has a combined here. I'm pulling this up right now. Over the last 3 weeks, a combined 128 yards, 0 touchdowns. Since week 3, he's scored just 2 touchdowns. Where do we rank Travis Kelsey among dynasty tight ends?
I think it's higher than you think. Like leading into this week, Travis Kelsey, despite the fact that I feel like we kind of think of this as a really disappointing season, Travis Kelsey had been very reliable. Outside of maybe the last 2 weeks, he had been a tight end 1 75% of his games this season. And we look at him as though he's chopped liver. I think he has to be higher than you think, despite this. Like I'm not going to discount Travis Kelsey due to a 2-game lull, though. I mean, the age has to be considered with Travis Kelsey, and I'm considering that more of a ding to his dynasty value than his lack of production. He still ranks number 1 in targets, number 1 in receptions, number 1 in receiving yards, number 1 in PPR points. He still is the tight end 1 on the season. I think this is a team that's finally starting to figure things out a little bit. Now, I would be interested. Like, I think Mark Andrews is probably the one candidate that we might consider ahead of Travis Kelsey. So, what does that bump him to tight end 4?
Maybe. So let's just rank them out right now. So I think both you and I have George Kittle at number 1 right now, correct?
Correct.
And then would you have Pitts at number 2?
Yes.
Okay. At 3, are you going
Mark Andrews?
Yeah, I think I agree. So then at 4, it's between Darren Waller and Travis Kelsey. Would you take Waller or Kelsey at that point?
I'm taking Kelsey. Obviously, we've seen lots of production out of Darren Waller, but Darren Waller has actually had a much more disappointing season than Travis Kelsey has, period. And it's been kind of crazy because they didn't have any dominant wide receiver 1. Even when Henry Ruggs was on the field, he didn't really totally demand those targets like an alpha wide receiver. I still think you have to go with Travis Kelsey despite the age difference because of the consistency and production from Travis Kelsey and in what he's done for you just for years. I'm not gonna say I would take Gronk over Kelsey, but I will make this argument. Kelsey's only like 4 months old or younger than Rob Gronkowski, and that seems insane considering Gronk feels like he's been around forever. And Gronk is averaging more fantasy points per game this year than Travis Kelsey. Now he's missed some time due to an injury, but whenever Gronk has played, he's basically been a tight end 1 for you, right? Like the last 3 weeks, averaging 81 yards a game. He has 2 touchdowns in that time. Tight end is a mess, is what I'll say. That's basically my biggest takeaway here. It's definitely a mess. But I think the one thing to note about Rob Gronkowski and the thing that lowers his dynasty value is A, the injury history.
Yeah.
And B,
true.
He has already stepped away from football once. He came back, made a fantastic run, obviously with Tom Brady and the Bucs, is doing it again. But I have to imagine, if this is maybe the last season for him, and we'll see. He's been pretty healthy overall, but it feels like borrowed time.
I think I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I would still rank Kelsey ahead of Gronk. It's crazy how similar those two guys have been this year. And actually, Gronk has just been the better fantasy asset when he's played. So,
all right, I want to talk one more,
good.
a duo actually. So I don't even know if this is a positive or a negative, but I needed to bring it up. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 2 on the week so far, put up an absolutely monstrous day against the Texans. 9 targets, 5 receptions, 142 yards, and a score. Tyler Lockett is just not quitting. Period. He is just far and away he looks like he's got the best connection with Russell Wilson right now. And he looks to be the guy that Russell Wilson's going to need to look to get him out of this slump. But he's been the more consistent producer for fantasy. He's been since Russell Wilson returned to injury. He has been, I think, the better asset here. DK Metcalf, another disappointing outing this week. DK Metcalf scored 6.3 fantasy points in half PPR formats. You want to talk about disappointing? He had fewer points than Braxton Berrios, Josh Reynolds. God, what other names can I throw out here? Nico Collins, like Khalif Raymond. Come on, guys. Are we concerned? At what point? Because we keep ranking DK Metcalf as a top 5 wide receiver, and he hasn't shown up.
Yeah, I think it's time to start getting a little concerned. Kate, in his last 18 games, he has 1 game over 100 yards receiving. 1. This is somebody who is supposed to be a deep play, big guy threat, and he's just not doing it very consistently at all. And we were hoping the touchdowns would come, and they do come in spurts. We saw him actually more with Geno, but we're on a streak now of 5 games without a touchdown. And you do wonder, has the league caught up to him a little bit? Maybe. I still think he's an incredibly good player, but when we're talking about him as a top 3 or 4 dynasty receiver, I just can't get behind that anymore. There's just guys that are way more reliable, way more involved in the offense. Yeah, I think we can have a conversation about moving him down at least a tier in our rankings.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I mean, still a top 12 dynasty tight end. He is still a premium physical specimen, but given the question marks with Russell Wilson, is he going to be in this offense anymore? What is that going to look like? We haven't really seen the non-Russell Wilson era in quite some time. So I just think there are enough question marks that we do need to consider bumping him down a tier and letting that ride out, as painful as that would be.
All right, we're going to talk about some running backs who are scheduled to be free agents here in our final segment. But before we do that, we want to tell you guys about Built Bar. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar, or even better, it's better than a candy bar, at least in my opinion. Built Bar, filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with great flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There's so many great flavors. You're going to have a hard time choosing. My favorite is coconut brownie chunk. There's raspberry, there's mint brownie, cherry, double chocolate. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down those mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that little extra something you need to keep you going. So just throw one in your jacket or purse, and you never know when you're going to need it. Go to BuiltBar.com, use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Just use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. We also want to tell you guys about BetOnline. You should grab a Built Bar and then go to BetOnline to make your sports bets this year.
Fuel
BetOnline
your bets,
has you covered
guys.
for all. Yeah, BetOnline has you covered for all season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football season continues the march to the playoffs, BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right,
All right,
everybody.
Kate.
We
Go
need
ahead.
to talk about some running back contracts. Like we do. This is something that I want to focus on a little over the next couple of weeks because there are so many big names heading free agency next year, especially at the wide receiver position. We are going to have to really dedicate some time here to that position. But the nice thing is we don't have anybody like too big hitting the free agency market at running back next year. But we do have some notable names who have like performed very well this season, put together some really nice arguments for them to get another contract. So first, I want to talk about Melvin Gordon. He's been the RB17 this year, on pace for nearly 1,200 scrimmage yards, 12 touchdowns. And that's with Javonte Williams, literally splitting the backfield almost 50-50 throughout the season. Melvin Gordon, has he made a case? I know he came out recently to say he would love to stay in Denver. Has he made a case for just another contract, a fruitful contract?
Yeah, I would love to see Denver just kind of lead into Javonte Williams and just give him the workload. But Melvin Gordon's been pretty solid. And I'm not sure what type of contract he gets, but I do think he does return to Denver because he's somebody who's pretty reliable. He can be used in the passing game. We saw like this game against Detroit, 24 carries for 111 yards. I do kind of like the combination of Williams and Gordon there. It gives him a pretty high floor. I think he does return to Denver.
All right. Since the 2018 season, Melvin Gordon has ranked 9th in rushing yards, tied for the 6th most rushing touchdowns. He's just been incredibly productive, and he seems to do it just no matter what. 6 in avoided tackles. He's a really solid running back, despite the fact that I feel like we're all frustrated with him just because of Javonte Williams.
Wait, let me ask you this, Kate. Like, I think it's likely he returns to Denver, but where's the situation where you'd like to see him go to basically help his fantasy value? Is there some place that you can see right now where he would make a lot of sense?
I
got one.
Okay.
What about the Jets? I think the Jets could use somebody like that and let Michael Carter kind of be that passing down back. But I could see him in the Jets getting 18 to 20 touches a game and just giving them like a veteran presence on that offense.
Let me give you another name. How about the Arizona Cardinals? Speaking of expiring contracts, they've got James Conner, Chase Edmonds. They are going to need an RB1 if they're not planning to extend James Conner, who may have made the case for an extension here. But I'd love to see Melvin Gordon just get a lion's share of touches, especially with a rushing quarterback, to kind of just mix things up a little bit, give him a little bit more time before contact there to make some big plays because his touchdown upside is huge.
So Edmonds and Connor both have deals up. Doesn't it feel like Connor's probably going to be back on a 1-year deal and Edmonds is probably going to be the guy that they let go? Isn't that kind of your sense?
It feels like it. And I think that for some reason, I keep thinking that it seems like James Conner is the cheaper contract of the two. How about the Atlanta Falcons? So their RB1 this season, Cordero Patterson, also has a deal expiring next season. They will not have a featured running back. Maybe we see Melvin Gordon head over to Atlanta, but Cordero Patterson, what do we do with Cordero Patterson? Because he's the RB6 this season. Does him hitting the free agency market increase his value or decrease his value for fantasy football?
I actually think it decreases it a little bit. I think Patterson would be wise to stay in Atlanta, stay with Arthur Smith, because that's really the only coach that's fully committed to making him a featured part of the offense. So I would love to see Patterson go back to Atlanta, and maybe they add somebody that can complement him better than Mike Davis or Quadri Allison. So, somebody that's a little bit more competent, but I would love to see Patterson back in Atlanta.
I would as well. How about Sony Michelle? Was traded to the Los Angeles Rams. And, now we saw him get a little bit of work finally. We saw Darrell Henderson was active, but didn't get any touches, but banged up, now on the COVID list. But Sony Michelle, 24 rushing attempts, 121 yards and a rushing touchdown. Also nabbed 3 receptions, only 8 yards on those receptions, but the target share is just you got to appreciate targets. What do we think of Sony Michelle? Because he's in a position where he is going to be able to, I think, continue to start. We've heard positive things from Sean McVay about just wanting to get him involved in general, whether or not Darrell Henderson is healthy. Are you buying or selling Sony Michelle knowing that he's going to hit the free agency market?
I'm selling. I just don't think he's very good, Kate. I'm sorry. What team
fair.
is going to sign Sony Michelle and be like, yes, this is our featured running back? I don't see it. He came into the NFL with a history of knee injuries. He hasn't been overly effective or efficient in his career. 4.3 yards per carry, 4.1 yards per carry this year. He's already 26 years old. He'll turn 27 in February. I'm out on Sony.
All right. One final name that I want to go over before we check out today. Leonard Fournette. He's been the RB5 this season. Playoff Lenny is here to stay. But since 2019, like, he's just been scoring fantasy points. Even dating back to 2018, go back to 2018. And since that span, he has accumulated the 14th most half PPR points among all running backs. That's more than Chris Carson, more than David Montgomery, more than Miles Sanders, more than all of these names that I think we would all say we generally value far ahead of Leonard Fournette. So what do we make of Leonard Fournette? Do we think he returns to Tampa Bay? Because that's my guess.
Yep.
And I think that's where he's going to have the most value.
I agree. I think he returns. Do you realize that in his last 41 games, so that's basically close to 3 seasons, 174 receptions. Like, this is crazy. When he came into the league, we thought of him as not really a pass catcher, and now he's at the 3rd most running back receptions in the NFL this year. He actually has the same amount as Eckler. He's not only been, an efficient runner this year, averaging 4.5 yards per carry, but also getting just a ton of work in the passing game. Yeah, I think Fournette comes back to Tampa Bay next year, and he's a low-end RB1 once again.
All right, which one of these running backs do you want to trade for right now based on their current contract situation? And knowing contract situation's always an interesting time to buy, because you could end up getting a very low value steal here, depending on the next contract. But you also could nail yourself in the foot. So which of these guys do you want the most, knowing their current contract situation?
Fournette, because Ronald Jones, I believe, is a free agent, which just takes one more name out of that backfield. Giovanni Bernard is old, and he got hurt on Sunday. Fournette's just somebody that Tom Brady loves, and I don't see Tom Brady not playing next year. So whenever Fournette's in the game, he's going to get a ton of work. He's the guy that I would go out and trade for right now.
All right. I'm actually in full agreement with you there. Wow. What a slew of names. And guys, wait until we get to the wide receiver episode. We're going to need a little more. I think we're going to need 2 segments.
I think we might need a whole show on wide receiver free agents.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. All right. That is it for today's show. Good show today, Kate. We got a lot of info in there. We've moved Travis Kelsey all the way down to like tight end 5 or 6 or something like that. We just threw dirt on his grave. We got to talk about some running backs. So it was a fun show. So follow the show at Locked On Dynasty on Twitter. You can follow Kate at FF Ball Blast. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. Check out Locked On Bets. Your boy Q does a fantastic job over there. We just want to promote some of our other podcasts in the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Bets, a great show that you guys need to be listening to. Ryan and Matt will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday. Kate, you and I will be back on Friday to talk about Chiefs and Chargers on Thursday Night Football. Woo, that'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait.
Full body tingles.
Yeah, that's going to be my goodness. We didn't even get to talk about Justin Herbert, what ridiculous stuff he did yesterday. We'll maybe save that for next week. But enjoy your week, guys. We'll see you next time.